Hey guys, today I'm going to be painting the Wastelander from Fallout the board game. So I primed the miniature because I looked at all of them and Fantasy Flight did a really good job avoiding a lot of mold lines. However, after priming, I still felt there was probably a little bit I could trim up. But see, that was it. It was like nothing. It was really easy. Now you'll see here I actually have the Citadel hobby holder. I finally found one. A coworker of mine actually has the hobby holder that like Watch It Painted has, and I was able to hold it. It actually seems really nice. I want both, just to kind of play around with it and see which one I like more. Because again, it's all about what's comfortable over necessarily what, you know, I guess is maybe designed better or looks better or whatever. I do like how big of a handle this has, though it looks like I was thinking of maybe holding it wrong. My coworker showed that you can hold the other hobby holder by the handle as opposed to just the bottom part. So I don't know. I need to play around with both, I feel, to really see which one I like more. And maybe I'll just stick with some cork, you know, and just kick it old school. I don't know. So anyway, basic skin tone. This is kind of the basic skin tone, right? This is going to be the default color. I am going to add a bit more here. And actually, there's going to be quite a few new colors here. So, you know, please pay attention to that as we go along. And here's the first one, Sunny Skin Tone. So I'm going to add this to kind of her face and stuff. So here's Piper from Fallout 4, and I'm basing this character mostly off of that because they seem to have a very similar jacket and even hat and even the scarf, right? Again, these miniatures in the game obviously are inspired by other characters in the video game, but they're not exact, right? They're just kind of inspired. So this person has the scarf and kind of the jacket design and the hat even. And so I'm just adding a little bit of red, and I'm adding a bit more now, just kind of on the eyebrows, underneath the hat, and then in the cheeks, and kind of the crevices in between the fingers and whatnot. But mostly just to add some definition there. Some Rhinox Hide. This is for the hat. This is just a small little portion here. Nothing too major. It's just a very small splash of color. But again, be careful. I'm using a small brush here. Ochre Brown, again, another new color. So this is going to be on the kind of hood that she has here, and I'm actually going to bring it down to some of her sleeves and her skirt. So, and I think this is actually what I would consider kind of the defining color of the miniature. In other words, I kind of designed everything that I'm not basing it off of. So here's the skirts. This is just a reference I use to see kind of how dirty they get in the game. It's not necessarily what I'm painting it to, if that makes sense. Anyway, so when I did the ghoul, I tried it to be just a hint of green, but with, you know, mostly red. And so for this one, I'm kind of taking this ochre brown and just really trying to make it like this is pretty much the color of the wasteland she's in. And I might bring that up a bit later when I talk about weathering. But really this is just kind of the color of choice, I think. And it's also the most predominant color. And I quite like it. It's actually a really good kind of dirty cloth color, especially by the time I'm done. So there's kind of the sleeves. She has two different sleeves. And then her jacket is a vest. So again, this is not Piper. It's just kind of similar. So now I'm going to add some Reikland flesh shade onto it. This is going to add a little bit of a red hue, but just slightly. It's kind of a very light red-brown. And so it'll dirty it up, but also slightly shift the color a little bit more towards the red, which I'm quite happy with. It's more of a New Vegas look, if you're familiar with the video games, as opposed to, you know, 3 or 4 perhaps. Now, this is just that same ochre brown. I'm just watering it down and kind of lightening it back up. Now you see how it's like her skirt's kind of folded in a certain design. Now I'm not going to actually worry too much right now. I'm just trying to bring back the color. So I'm not worried about like highlighting as in like where the light hits. I'm just trying to get the color back. So I'm going to hit both sides of the skirt and make sure it's just kind of brought back up. But I'm not going to get that part underneath, or that's kind of farther in, right, where it's kind of torn. I'm going to leave that in kind of the more shadowed Reikland flesh tone shade. Again, same here. I'm just kind of using that shade as a guideline on where these highlights go. Alright, and here I'm just adding white, so this is going to be the first highlight, but notice I'm not necessarily highlighting as it is, I'm adding definition, right? So I'm kind of loading up the brush and then taking the side of the brush and wiping it down the kind of ridges here. This is different than a dry brush. A dry brush would get kind of the sides as well and kind of feathered out, and I want more of a hard line just on the edges. And I'm not worried about how straight it is or how consistent of a flow it is. In fact, I kind of want a little bit of definition. Then I'll add a little bit on the sides, and now see how I'm just doing angled lines across it? This is kind of the scuff marks, or just kind of the wear and tear that this material has hopefully received. I'm really only doing those lines on either the hood rim, so I have a few there, and then the skirt. I'm not worried about, you know, roughing up really too much. Now I'm also adding some white to the Rhinox Hide here, and that's just to give a wear and tear at the end of the rim there. Now I will say, Deathclaw Green is going to be for the scarf, by the way. I'm going to pull the picture back up, as you can see there. I am basing it kind of off that, so it's kind of this green with some stripes, and I'll add the stripes later. When it comes to highlighting, I've always added just plain white. I want to try and challenge myself to not do that as much, and instead highlight with a different color or a lighter color, right? So, you know, maybe I took a buff from Vallejo instead of, you know, this Ochre Brown, or even a dark sand, or you know, something else, and added that to it, as opposed to just pure white. But, you know, it's something I hope to try and do in the future, and hopefully get some better results in my highlighting. This is just adding the design onto that scarf. I told you there's kind of like these lines or whatever, and so I'm just trying to make it look good. Some Deathclaw Brown. This is for the folded out part of the jacket. This is the only part that this color is going to be on. It's a very small amount, but I think I use a lot of colors on this miniature. Like, you'll probably be surprised. There's quite a few. Calvary Brown. This is going to be the kind of red, as you can see in the picture here. It's just kind of like this red, a little bit of brown color, and I'm going to make it a little bit more brown much later in the video. And this is kind of nice because it is, again, it works really well with this kind of tan color I have going on with this Ochre Brown as well. And so the tonal range isn't a huge shift. I know nothing about a color wheel or anything like that, but it looks to be kind of the same to me, like these would be found in the same space, right? Or the same person would wear them. She's not wearing bright pink somewhere or something like that. I will add a splash of color much later on, and I'll point that out, because I do like something really defining, especially from the tabletop. And then make sure to get the bottom part too, so it's tucked barely below her belt there. So be sure to get that little bit as well. I had to go back and get it. I had actually forgotten. But you know, it happens. It happens to the best of us. So this is the highlighting, and again, just added a bit of white, and then just kind of going along the edges, the top of the chest, and then at the very tips there, and then in the back it has a lot of detail, and so I'm just kind of, it's almost like tracing, right? You're looking at these lines or these raised bits that you see, and you're just dragging your brush as if you're almost tracing it. Now, I did not add any more. This is kind of a drastic highlight, and so I didn't add any after this, so what you see is what you get here. But again, I'm pretty happy with it. Abaddon Black, these are these black buttons. Again, I thought this might help it kind of pop. And black red, this is a red I love. I mean, I really like dark red. So here I'm just going to show you the gloves and the boots. Now, these dark reds, again, it fits kind of in this kind of brown red realm that I'm living in right now. But apple red is my favorite color red, by the way. So I'm not really big into like the sports car red, the really kind of candy bright red. But this kind of red, I can get behind this kind of red. I like it. So I'm really glad I have this color, and you're going to probably be tired of me cramming this into other miniatures and commenting about how much I like it. But again, I think it's a good contrast. There's a lot of different... I wanted this character to look like every single bit of her clothing is from somewhere else, right? So she's got kind of the skirt and hood and stuff, and then she's got these other sleeves I haven't even painted yet. She's got these boots and gloves that come from a different set. She, you know, her belt is probably different. You know, just the scarf. I wanted it to where, again, she just kind of looked like she looted a whole bunch of raiders, maybe, or something. Maybe not raiders, because it would be raider armor, but that she just found these and is wearing them, and they're all dirty and kind of just brown. This is white gray, again, another new color. I did this for her socks because I didn't want to do pure white. If I did pure white, I would have like done some Nolan oil. Instead, I'm going to actually try and even bring these. They're right above her boots. She's walking in the wasteland. It doesn't rain a whole bunch. I'm assuming dust has kicked in and she only has one pair of socks or something like that. Either way, they're going to be dirty. And I'm going to bring it up here to the secondary sleeve. However, I'm not going to make those dirty, so they'll end up looking like two different colors. So here's that Seraphim Sepia. Again, this is kind of a much lighter brown, right? And with a more of an orange hint versus a red hint. And again, that's just to kind of put it on there. And then I'm gonna highlight it up. I don't recall if that's off camera or not. I apologize for that. The socks, that is. I'm gonna highlight her boots up here. And again, it's just some white mixed in. Nothing fancy. There's actually a lot of detail on her shoes, which is kind of nice. So you can really kind of pop those out. The ghoul, if you recall, had very plain shoes that didn't have much detail at all. So you kind of had to almost invent detail, which you have to do sometimes with models, whether, you know, it's, you know, pretending there's ridges for shoelaces or a collarbone or, you know, maybe the definition on the bottom. You know how a lot of times that little bit, the sole of the shoe. So here's red leather. Again, another red-brown color. This is for her belt. This is a bit brighter. I like that this kind of brings the brightness of the skirt and the darkness of the jacket, and hopefully tries to kind of tie them together. I don't know if you can tell or not, but I did think about this miniature a bit more than the others when it comes to planning the paints. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it ends up being a better model because of it. Again, part of this is because there is no concept art, right? And so I really had to just kind of look around, see what I liked, and put some real thought into it. And there's some pros to that. Leadbelcher is up next. This is going to be for the belt, and like the buckle, and then there's these studs here. And so I'm going to go ahead and paint those in too. Originally, I thought about maybe doing the studs as a non-metallic. However, she doesn't really have a lot of metallic, and again, I thought that might help it kind of pop some more. So this was an ad hoc change I did, and while I had it there, I decided to do that. Dark sand. This was, again, another thing I had kind of added. You see I have a really nasty brush. This is what happens when you do not clean your brushes. So no, this is on purpose. And I'm just kind of spackling it on there, right? Closer to the bottom of the skirt and then moving up, all over the boots, just trying to dirty it up like she, you know, doesn't wash them with Tide detergent, and just, you know, really kind of has this dust and grime caked up. So now I'm adding this shade back in. It's a Reichlin Flesh shade, but I'm just going along the edges. I wanted those to be a little bit more defined, a little bit deeper, but I don't want it cartoony, right? I still want it to be mostly natural. The model has it, you know, going like at sharp angles, and I don't necessarily want sharp angles. I also jab them into those little small parts there to really add some depth there. Some flat earth for the stock of the wood. You can see here's my basic concept, mostly for the metal. Look how dark that metal is. I'll get back to that. But this is just a different brown. I wanted kind of a very, I don't know, a very flat and unassuming brown, but maybe one that leans slightly closer to the yellow. And so I looked on the Vallejo model chart. You know, I was busy ordering all these paints. And I saw this one, I was like, this is perfect, you know, and so I got this. They have an earth color, just an earth color, but it's a much deeper brown, which is not something I wanted, even though it's probably closer to that you know, kind of concept art I just showed you. I thought it would, I didn't want the gun to contrast from the mini. Again, I just kind of wanted the whole mini to look like one thing. I'm probably not explaining that well, so I apologize for that. There are some fiddly bits here. Especially near her hood, just kind of getting in there. Okay, so this is Abaddon Black mixed with Leadbelcher. It's about a 50-50, so it's literally equal parts Abaddon Black and Leadbelcher, and I love this color. I love how it turned out. I literally painted it and got excited, and I had to go show my wife, and I was like, this is just a cool color. It's a very dark metallic, as you can see, kind of like that concept art showed, and I really, really like that. I thought it worked really well because it's kind of muted, so it's not too shiny or anything like that. Again, looks fairly old and worn, like this is not a gun that was just produced. And then there was these kind of straps that are holding in all these accessories that I have no idea what they do. They don't even all make sense. Like this one over here is pointing towards a barrel. Like I don't know what that does, but it's there anyway. Some Administratrum Grey. This is for the kind of bits here. I'm gonna assume that these are. I wanted it to be like plastic bits, like she used, not necessarily like a soda bottle, you know, but just obviously not necessarily a legitimate gun piece is what I was kind of hoping for. I don't know exactly how well that came across, but that was my hope here. But you know, again, it is kind of hard to get in there. Okay, gray blue. This is my splash of color, right? This is, I figured this might just be a cloth that she found, like a wash rag almost, and just wrapped it around. Like the wood maybe was splitting and she held it there, whatever. But you see how bright and blue that is? It's a very nice and distinctive. Looks great from on the table when you're playing the game. And then we have Druchii Violet. So I added this shade in. I don't know if you noticed, but I haven't used a lot of shade on this mini. But I really wanted to get that kind of shadow effect, and I thought the purple hue would just make it pop even more. So I did a quick dry brush of just the normal Leadbelcher and then Necron compound to really add the scuff marks. But again, real quick, it just kind of a rub, you know, just kind of brush it on and then you're done. Known oil on the plastic bits and then on the Leadbelcher on her buckle. Again, I don't want really anything too bright here, except for that kind of wrap. I really like that. So here I'm adding the Reikland Flesh Shade onto parts of her jacket and belt. I'm not putting it everywhere, though I am pretty heavy-handed with it. But I just kind of wanted some splotchiness, added a little bit of brown, but again, that Reikland Flesh Shade is kind of has a red undertone anyway. And now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take that dark sand, and I'm going to bring it up, you know, to the very bottom portion of her jacket, kind of up to her chest, and then kind of the middle of her back. And then I'm going to bring that dark sand and actually paint the bottom of her base with this. Now, this only matters in the sense that when I add the grass, it's not full coverage, and I'm fine with that. But this is the color I wanted poking out. Again, almost like there's this kind of like you know, whatever color dirt this is, it's been caked up onto her shoes and everything like that. And you'll be able to kind of see that a little bit. Not in the camera angle I show, but when playing the game, especially because you're kind of above the model, you can see this kind of poking out. And Moot Green for around the rim. Again, that's total Fallout colors. I think it's perfect for it. So I had actually done the eyes a few times. So as you can see, they're already done here. I'm adding that Reikland Flesh Shade as kind of a shadow on the top of her eye. I took this to a coworker and kind of talked through with it. And this is Ivory for the eyes instead of a pure white. And then that flat earth for the iris. Anyway, he had suggested putting a shadow there to really add some more realism to the eyes, and I think it did work out quite well. Astrogranite Debris, as you know, I kind of use this for like the rocks. It's really good for the kind of tough terrain that's on the board game tiles, so it fits really well. And her shoe is kind of lifted up there, and so I thought, oh, I'll have her like starting to walk on this, and so I literally kind of shoved it in there. And then I'm going to dry brush this Administratrum Grey just to kind of really bring up the ridges. And I'm going to seal it all, you know, with this purity seal. It's a matte varnish, just make it, you know, all nice and not going anywhere, preferably. And then I'm going to add lots and lots of glue. I could have probably actually added more glue. I kind of wish I had, but I don't know. I tend to never do enough because I do it and it's like, oh, that's way too much. And then just kind of bringing it around with a toothpick. And then I'm adding these little kind of coarse turf. Again, this is to add a little bit of texture. And then the fine sand, or the fine turf. This is earth and burnt grass mix. And then I'm going to struggle with this. I'm going to trim the kind of tall grass, add a little dollop of glue, stick it on there, and then let it sit there. I'm going to play around with it too much, and it's going to break and fall, and I wanted to show you, I guess, that I struggle, so that if you struggle with it, don't feel bad. I do too. I don't know if there's a right or wrong reason or how to do it. Anyway, here is the finished model though. This is it. That's how it came out. I hope you enjoy it. I really enjoyed painting this miniature, by the way. I don't know, I love the colors. I love the kind of overall design of the character herself. She seems like a very strong Wastelander that has seen some stuff and been through some stuff and knows how to handle herself, and I really like that. I like the weathering effect on the skirt and just kind of the dirtiness of everything. I think came out quite well. Guys, if you did like this video, give it a thumbs up. I always appreciate it. Let me know in the comments below what you think, maybe about my color choices, because again, with Fallout, unlike Massive Darkness, I get to pick the colors. And so I'd be curious to see if you think I'm on the right track, because I have no art training or anything like that. I just kind of do what I think feels right and might make sense in the real world. But anyway, if you want to see the rest of the Fallout and you're not subscribed yet, do that. I do paint other miniatures along with game news and, you know, industry updates and just kind of general stuff like that. So subscribe to see more of that. I always appreciate it. If you're feeling extra generous, go ahead and check out my Patreon. I do offer plenty of rewards, voting rights, AMAs, miniatures painted, all that kind of stuff. But also, if you just want to, you know, help support, by all means do that, but don't feel obligated either. Thanks so much for watching. I always appreciate it, and I'll talk to you again next time.